Good morning. We are honored to have with us as we celebrate International Women's Month on the Anakazi Banking Online Special Edition Conversations, our 2019 Anakazi Women of the Year, the president of the Medical Women's Association of Zambia, which has close to 500 female doctors, also assistant director in the Cancer Control Unit at the Ministry of Health, Dr. Sharon Kapambwe, popularly known as Dr. Sharon.
Thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
Great. And as you know, we are currently celebrating Women's Month with the theme of Choose to Challenge. So today is not really a topic. We don't have a topic for today. It's actually a celebration. And this is why I think it's a great opportunity for you to be here to just talk to us about women's health. So we have a few questions for you today, and I'm looking forward to the knowledge. And I think first and foremost, what is health?
That's a very important topic. The question that you've asked, health, if we defined it by the World Health Organization, we say health is the complete state of social, mental, and physical well-being, not merely the absence of disease. So, and I think we mostly concentrate on health as a physical state of being. So if I don't feel anything wrong with me, I have no fever, I have no headache, I'll say I'm healthy. But health goes beyond that. It's the mental state, and mental health is something that we don't consider so much in our society as part of health. It's your social well-being. How are you interacting? How is everything that's around you contributing to your health? If I don't have clean water, it's contributing to my health. The economy contributes to my health. You know, the social determinants of health that we have. My age is going to contribute to my health and all that. So we have to think of these three key things. You know, the social, the physical, and the mental well-being. So just because you have no physical disease, or there's absence of disease or infirmity in your body, it does not necessarily mean you're healthy. You could be struggling with other aspects of health.
So interesting. You say bringing together social, physical, and mental health. What does that mean for women? What is women's health?
So women's health is a very important aspect, and I think for a long time we have kind of put women's health in a box where we just consider women's health as sexual and reproductive health, where it has to do with childbearing, with being pregnant, or avoiding to be pregnant for that matter. But women's health is much more than that. Women's health, you know, has been defined as we look at what the World Health Organization thought about in 2015. They came up with 10 issues of women's health, which is very important. So when I'm thinking about women's health, some of the key issues that I want to talk about, there are issues of cancer, for example, which for women, we have 2 cancers globally. Even in our country, the picture is the same. We're talking about cancer of the cervix, breast. That's the most common cancer that we're dealing with. And remember, these are cancers, if detected early, are curable or treatable. And then we also, cervix is preventable through screening, through vaccination. We're talking about issues of sexual and reproductive health, which is what we concentrate on most of the time. We're talking about women avoiding to get pregnant and being able to take care of that. We're talking about issues of maternal health. This has to do with pregnancy and childbirth. And you find that we lose quite a number of women in Zambia. Our maternal mortality rate is quite high. So we lose women, during pregnancy, during childbirth, and even after childbirth, within 6 weeks of them delivering. We do lose quite a number of women in our country. And then you have to think about issues of sexually transmitted diseases, you have to think about HIV. And interestingly, non-communicable diseases. These are diseases, some say diseases of lifestyle to a certain extent. So you're talking about the diabetes, the hypertension coming in. One important factor that I want to mention about health, which we usually forget, is there are issues which concern young women. So young women have got their own issues with their health.
So we can separate them.
We can separate them. So we're looking at how young women, if you look young women in our society, we're talking about they're at a much higher risk of getting HIV infection than their male counterparts. If a woman a young girl gets pregnant before she's a child, having a child, the chances of even them dying during labor increases. And you talk about them having unwanted pregnancies. Some end up having unsafe abortions, which could also lead to death. So you talk about them acquiring STIs, and STIs in later life, if not well treated, it means that this is a girl who could end up, not all, but we find that most of the infertility, sometimes majority in the low income countries, is because of some infections that were not treated earlier in life. And that could be prevented, and we could prevent a lot of women, coming up with that. We've got older women health issues. And I think we have not paid enough attention as globally, as a world, and as a country, as a community. Most of the older women are now living longer. That means these older women are going to live longer. We are all going that way anyway. So women are in their 80s, they're in their 90s, and they've got specific issues that they have with their health. They're going to come out, they'll complain about knees ache, backache. I'm having backache, I've got my knees, I've got the osteoarthritis.
So it's not just old age.
It's not just old age. So you see, Mulenga, when they go into the clinic, we have this habit, or they go into any health facility, of being told, no, it's because you're old. Like, it's okay, because I'm old, I should be in pain. No, it's not. So we need to look into those issues that confront them. And with aging population, it means that they are also having a higher risk for some of the cancers. So we need to ensure that they are screened much more regularly, and they are seen because of that. So we need to start putting into place a health system that responds to the issues of older women. Not even menopause is talked about in our society. No. It's like, oh no, it's menopause, it's normal, so you sweat it out, have your hot flashes, have everything changing. You should be okay with that. And nobody even takes you through, the discussion of what's going to happen to you. And people will be like, oh, you're going to go through this period. Oh, I wake up, I'm sweating, I'm this and that. And what are the remedies? What can we help women with? How can we help that 90-year-old who comes? They're having bladder issues. How are we looking after dementia? Do we even know what dementia is? Do we even look for it when an older person comes? Or you just, I always wonder sometimes, some of the people who you find naked in the road in the middle of the night, and people start beating them. No, it's a witch, it's a witch. It could be that they're demented. They didn't even know how they got where they are. They've lost their way. And we are going to treat it that, no, this is a person who's got dementia. The other issue that is critical is violence against women. That is still a health issue.
So that comes into health as well?
Yes, because it's a physical and sexual violence against women. Women will be sexually violated, can end up with infections like HIV. Physically, they could actually die, but they also end up with mental issues. So because society is not talking about it, they can end up with those issues. So that's why we're saying it's a complete state of social, mental, and physical. And you can see mental health is a big issue in women's health.
So, it almost leads me very nicely into the next question, which is, what is the role of a woman? I mean, we have such limitations in our culture, first and foremost, before we even get to the lack of facilities. So what advice would you give a woman if I came to you today and said, what do I do?
So when you're looking at women's health, so one thing that is the approach that is being mostly talked about is the life course approach, is looking at this woman First, when you say a role of a woman, I've always said, when you go for weddings or kitchen parties, they have these beautiful centerpieces when you're sitting before everybody sits. It's so amazing. And I always feel that that's a woman. She sits there. And if you remove it, the whole thing is kind of just gets out of place. A woman has quite a pivotal role in our society. I don't just look after my immediate family. There are other people who benefit directly from me. There's a spillover, to my nieces, to my nephews, to even people who are not related to me.
When you educate a woman,
you educate the whole village. So I'm looking after those, some of them, to my church, to my community. The institutional memory that that woman carries. So there's the economic dependence. Just because I'm selling by the road does not mean that I'm not economically contributing to the nation, to my family. The moment you pull her out, then you see that just a study that was done on breast cancer, you find 2-3 orphans coming out of one woman who's died from breast cancer, and some of them are not even related to that woman. So they are those orphaned because of certain diseases that we haven't prevented. So I look at a woman, and it is known even from research that children who will lose their mother, them attaining the potential that they have is reduced when she's not there. So that's the role of a woman. Not that men don't have a role, but we are the custodians of society, of the morals, of the cultural practices that go on, that make us as women, as Zambian women. So that for that reason, a woman's health is of critical importance, because it's only when I'm healthy that I can be able to contribute. And when I'm healthy, I don't mean just because I'm not complaining of a headache. When I'm healthy mentally, when I'm not exhausted, when I'm not sleep deprived, when I'm not having physical ailments, then I can be able to contribute to this nation.
So, Dr. Sharon, interesting. I mean, I'm just intrigued with what I'm hearing. I think there's a lot of issues that we need to start facing and addressing. What made you decide to venture into this world of women's health? How did that all happen? And what impact have you had locally and globally? Because I know you're working globally, so we're not running away from that piece.
Okay, so I think when I was doing my internship at the university teaching hospital, going on to be a senior medical officer still, and that was when HIV was raging in this nation. 2003, 2004, 2005, it was raging. Everything you would do your work on Friday like today and have a long weekend and just come in, and then you find this heap of deaths to certify after just a weekend. And we didn't have drugs, we didn't have, that were accessible by all. And when I rotated through the Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology, I remember helping out the consultants with writing. We had a huddle committee that would recommend women to go for treatment for cancer outside. And cervical cancer was becoming quite prominent because women who are living with HIV are 5 to 6 times more likely at risk of developing cervical cancer compared to those who are not. And we had all these young women, older women who were coming in because of age and all that with cancer of the cervix. And we didn't have a treatment center. So we had to make tough decisions. There had to be a huddled committee that was making tough decisions of who goes for treatment abroad. We were sending to Zimbabwe and to South Africa then. And of course, it's not everybody. The government didn't have enough money to send all these cancer patients. It is not just the women cancer patients.
How did they decide who to send?
So there were many decisions that had to be, well, what is it? How old is this woman? What is she doing? Some were coming on already with full-blown HIV, and they were failing. So you look, okay, this one, health-wise, the status. So many things that they look into these women, which seemed quite unfair. But that's what you do when you don't have enough money. You have to choose. You have to have a criteria. And not everybody went for treatment. And Mulenga, between you and I, your guess is as good as mine. What sadly happened to the ones who never went.
That is awful.
So choosing to be in women's health, the other thing is actually the disease burden, the disease picture. I always say, diseases in most of our countries, in Zambia, have the face of a woman and a child. If you look at all the diseases you're looking into, it's women dying while delivering in pregnancy, it's women having cancer of the cervix, having breast cancer, it's women at a higher risk of getting malaria when they're pregnant, it's children, dying from some of the diseases that are quite preventable, vaccine preventable diseases. And that, when I went to do my master's, and the cervical cancer screening program was just starting, it was in 2 clinics, and I asked Professor Parham, who was one of the co-founders of the program, if I could look at that for my master's, because I was intrigued by what was happening at UTH, and now I'd moved on to Sidons. I said, oh no, I'll be more than delighted. And I spent my next 2 years reading around the topic of cancer of the cervix.
Wow.
And entrenched in it. And because it's a highly preventable disease, we can vaccinate, we can screen, we can treat
young girls.
Yes, we can vaccinate young girls. And that, for me, is like, we need to work towards this. My contribution, I usually talk about my contribution in terms of, of situations that happen. Is I walked into one of the main chain stores one time, and there was a mother with her daughters. The daughters were like in their 20s, 30s, and an elderly mother. And I was picking my fruits, and on my own on a weekend, and this woman says, she comes close to me. She says, "Are you the one who talks about cancer on TV?" So I says, "Yes." "Cervical cancer?" "Yes." So she says, "Have you seen those two?" So she says, "Oh, you come." Because these are my daughters. They haven't gotten screened. So I've been telling them they need to go to the clinic, and you talk to them, and blah, blah, and we had a chat. That makes me happy that, a disease which was kind of hidden, and a sexual reproductive type of cancer, when you don't openly talk about such issues, and I can walk in the shopping mall, and this is a mother with grown-up children, and we start having a conversation in the midst of a shop. It's a milestone. For me, those are the gains that I count in my life. That's a great contribution that we've opened up.
They're impacting.
That we've opened up. And then I see now there's a Facebook page, Two Sisters, which one of the cancer survivors started, and it has close to 200,000 women. And it's funny and very, very enriching and very fulfilling to me that we have thousands of women talking about how should I go for screening? My mother has got cancer. How are we going to help her? And all that. And society is open to talk. And lately they were like, okay, let's talk about menopause. What goes on? These are things our mothers, our grandparents never spoke about. They suffered in silence. And now that we can go ahead and open that box, and people can be able to talk about it, it's a great contribution. Globally, I think it's being able to sit around the table and say, Zambia deserves better, and they deserve more resources.
And well done for
Africa deserves better. For me, it's. I believe, I've always believed, when you sit at the table where everybody is making decisions, and they trickle down to that woman in Kaputa or Shangwambo, that's it. I feel that that's my reason to be at that table. Is basically to get such things done.
That's amazing, and I can hear and almost start to imagine how many women you've impacted, and you continue to impact. And I'm hoping that this show, really impacts some women to go out there and get screened, because, like you're saying, these are preventable. We can avoid getting to a place of death in some of these cancers. But something that I've been thinking about, considering the times that we're in, what do you think has been the impact of COVID on women?
So there's always been this, women are not really impacted by COVID. They don't die as much as men, and the men are wondering why they die. Of course, there have been a lot of scientific discussions which have gone on. Is it the immune responses to viruses? We didn't respond the same way to influenza, so maybe it's the immunity makeup. Is it that, they found men who smoke, cigarette smoking might have an impact on them? But I think now we see that it's almost a 50-50 issue. But when we talk about impact, I think it goes beyond health. And we have defined health as merely not the absence of disease. Look at it, it's hard. Women are caregivers. So if my husband comes down with COVID and is locked up in Levi Mwanawasa, it means that you will find, if you go, that women stop working. They are going over to check on how their husband is doing. And so that means two people who are breadwinners not being able to go and make that necessary income that is needed.
And that's the stark reality.
And so I'm going to be there checking, is he okay? Has he eaten? What does he need? And all that. And then you find that the other thing is, even women who are selling, because companies are not doing so well, they're not open because there's COVID, there are restrictions here and there in the economy, and they can't make as much money as they do. They can't take their children to school. They can't, help the family as they should. So it has had an impact. And, you walk through a hair salon and people are like, I'm not going to go there. Maybe I'll get COVID and I'm not going. So the women who do hair get their own impact. They're not getting as many clients as they should because they have to observe these strict COVID measures. And we have a majority of women in the informal structure. When you come to the health sector, for us, over 70%, close to 70% of women of health workers are female. Your nurses, your cleaners, your female doctors, your lab, your physio, everybody else who makes up the system. We've got more women who are working in the sector.
Even in the bank, you'll find there's
a lot of women. Yeah. So when we are at the front line, infection among health workers is not a secret. We've had our colleagues getting infected, and you don't go for work for some time, your health is affected. So there has been all this impact going on economically, socially. We can no longer laugh, you and I. I mean, it's because of the social distance. The moment we finish this interview, we're back in our masks and we can't go and celebrate the way we know how. And that's part of stress relief. You go for a wedding on Saturday and people are dancing and laughing and come back home. It does give you, rather than when you're locked up in your house because you're scared of getting COVID. So it has some mental health issues that are related to people are stressed. They're stressed about getting infected. When they get infected, they're stressed. What's the outcome? Hope I don't die. What about my kids and everything? So we've had various levels of impact of COVID on women.
Yeah, and we pray that we get the vaccine soon and we start to see some
Definitely.
improvement. I mean, when I look at you, Dr. Sharon, I am always amazed by what you've done. I've known Dr. Sharon for a while, actually way back, and I'm totally amazed by what you have achieved. What advice would you give to a girl child who's starting out and starting to think of women's health?
So when I look at the girl child, as far as our health is concerned, first, before I even start with the girl child, I want to start with their mothers and discussions around health with their girls. I was involved in a formative research that we did for young girls in some of the schools in Lusaka, and we asked, one of the questions that we asked was, what is your source of information on health, sexual reproductive health? Who gives you information? And majority, nearly almost 100% of those young girls in high school said friends first, and teacher, maybe mother, or a sister or someone much older that they live with, a guardian.
Or grandmother.
They don't even ask. The grandmother comes very low in their friends first.
Okay.
So I asked, why is it so? Because it's a different era. We always say we don't know the current teen, the current adolescent, and their challenges that they go through. I said, first and foremost, why is it that our parents only want to talk to us? Like all this time, you reach puberty, you start your menses, and your mother just comes and says, don't sleep with boys, you get pregnant, and there's no, or worse still, is that they take you to a relative or a friend who I don't even talk to that much, and then they dump you there and say, oh, explain to this girl what is involved in what has happened. I'm stressed, I don't know what has gone on. So it starts from there. And it's also that sometimes when we ask our parents, if I go and ask, oh, mom, they said that such and such is sexually transmitted. What exactly, how is it sexually transmitted? How does it impact? Immediately you see someone flaring up. You have started misbehaving, you're sleeping around, why are you talking about sex? So they pull back because you have judged them instead of having a conversation. So if we're going to have good sexual and reproductive health for our girls, we need to be open mothers, difficult as it is culturally for me and hearing my daughter. And sometimes I'm like, Lord, help me. How am I going to answer this? Embarrassment, the ground swallow me. What am I supposed to say? You know, but you give her that confidence that she's not going to seek information which is inaccurate elsewhere. Because if you don't, they've got phones. They'll just download and read, and get confused and do things they shouldn't do. To the young girl, there are consequences to decisions that you make about your health. Get to learn more. There are very good sites that you could go to, Ministry of Health, there are Adolescent Health Services, there are peer educators that are starting up. Find out, get accurate information about your health, even as you venture into the next phase of life. Because believe me, the decisions that you make today, wrong or right, have consequences later in life. And some of them will go beyond, today. You carry them through life. So for that reason, as a young woman, as a young girl, be conscious of the decisions you're making, regards your words. Start now to eat healthy. Start now, to get checked for what you can. So we must begin to engrave good habits when we are young. Because now, when we reach this age, when the hormones are also kicking left, right, and center, it's not as easy to come and say, oh, I'm going to lose weight. It takes you forever. You fast, eat, change diets. And you're like, this isn't working, But if you get good habits from a young age, that gives you a much.
So start them young.
Start them young. And they should start young as well. They should be running. Schools should have physical education. Physical activity should be a part of life for these girls.
Thank you for that information, and I do hope that we have some young girls listening to this show. Just the last question. I'm actually loving this year's theme, that Choose to Challenge, because we're challenging the norms. We've got to look at challenging the norms. You've spoken about some of the things that we face difficulty with as women, as mothers, as children, and I think it's so important to make everyone understand what it is they can do differently. What can a woman, and I'm asking this as a woman, what can we do to change society, to make life better for a woman, their child, and all the children that are yet to come, or the girls that are yet to come?
So when we choose to challenge, I've looked at choose to challenge. What am I asking the women to choose to challenge? I'm asking them to choose to challenge issues concerning their health. I'm asking them to get screened. I'm asking them to adopt healthy lifestyles. I'm challenging them to take care of their health first. Women, we love taking care of everybody else before we take care of ourselves. We want to meet the deadlines at work. We want to ensure the kids, if they're not feeling well, if we have partners, my husband is okay. If he's sick, I'll run around to ensure that he gets it. But I could be feeling sick myself. Challenging every woman to make their health a priority. Because only when you are healthy, and remember, I said mental, physical, and social state of well-being. So choose to challenge. I challenge you to look after your health. Make it a priority.
So women, mothers, young girls, you've heard it for yourself. Make yourself a priority. Go and get tested, go and get checked, ensure you love yourself. We spoke about loving ourselves earlier.
Yes.
We need to love ourselves. We need to remember that stage you spoke about.
Yes.
That's where we belong as women.
Mm-hmm.
But we shouldn't at any time just not love ourselves, and we should always look out for other women too. I think
Yes,
it's equally
it's
important.
important. And when you get information about health, I challenge you to share that important information with another woman. If you know that getting screened is important, and your cousins in the village have no clue, I challenge you to, because at the end of the day, even that woman in the rural area, when she's lost, we lose a woman who is pivotal to the functioning of that society. So I challenge you to share good habits with your friend. It's not just about you, it's about the woman next door. So take care of her, take care of the other young girls.
Thank you so much. And I think let's continue challenging. Even when the month ends, we need to challenge and really look out for ourselves. Just want to thank you so much, Dr. Sharon. It's been an absolute pleasure. I have learned so much. And I just want to thank you. I feel like we need a session.
Oh,
another
yes.
session, because we can go on and on.
She didn't mention that we were together in Sunday school, but that's fine. We've ended the
we
interview.
were together. So it's been such a pleasure catching up with you today.
I'm happy.
Thank you so much.
I am so
And
delighted.
you continue to challenge and impact women.
Thank you. Thank you.
So thank you for tuning in this morning to this special edition of Anakazi Online Conversations. It was such a pleasure to have Dr. Sharon here with us during this Women's Month. Choose to challenge, and we will continue to challenge. And my name is Mulenga Silwamba. I am the head of personal markets at Stanbic Bank Zambia. And have a good day. Thank you.